with a grateful heart, give thanks to the Holy One.
Genesis 34. Some time later, Dinah, Leah's daughter whom she had borne to Jacob, went out to visit the women of the land. When Hamor the Hivite's son Shechem, the regional leader, saw her, he grabbed her and raped her, humiliating her. He was attached to Dinah, Jacob's daughter, since he loved the young woman and spoke tenderly to her. Then Shechem told his father Hamor, "Get this young woman for me to be my wife." Because Jacob learned that Shechem had dishonored his daughter Dinah while his sons were still out with their cattle on the open range, he remained silent until they returned. Meanwhile, Shechem's father Hamor arrived to talk to Jacob. Just then Jacob's sons arrived from the field. When they heard what had happened, they were distraught with grief and livid with anger toward Shechem, because he had committed a disgraceful deed in Israel by forcing Jacob's daughter to have sex, an act that never should have happened. But Hamor said this, "My son is deeply attracted to your daughter. Please give her to him as his wife. Intermarry with us. Give your daughters to us and take our sons for yourselves. Leave with us anywhere you want. Leave, trade, and grow rich in it." Shechem also addressed Dinah's father and brothers. He told them, "If you'll just approve me, I'll give whatever you ask of me. No matter how big or how extensive your demands are for a dowry and wedding presents from me, I'll provide whatever you ask. Only give me the young lady to be my wife." But Jacob's sons answered Shechem and his father Hamor deceptively, because Shechem had dishonored their sister Dinah. They told them, "We can't do this. We can't give our sister to a man who isn't circumcised, because that would be insulting to us. But we'll agree to your request, only if you will become like us by circumcising every male among you. Then we'll give our daughters to you and take your daughters for ourselves, live among you, and be as a united people. But if you won't listen to us, then we're going to take our daughter and leave." What they said pleased Hamor and his son Shechem, so the young man did not delay the matter any further, since he was delighted with Jacob's daughter. Now Shechem was the most important person in his father's household. So Hamor and his son Shechem entered the gate of their city and addressed the men of their city. "These men are at peace with us," they announced. "Therefore, let them live in the land and trade in it. Look, the land is large enough for them. Let's take their daughters as wives for ourselves and let's give our sons to them." However, they added, "Only on this condition will the men consent to leave with us and be united as a single people with us. Every male among us will have to be circumcised just as they are. Shouldn't all their cattle, acquisitions, and animals belong to us? So, let's give our consent to them, and then they'll leave with us." All of the males who heard Hamor and his son Shechem, who had gone out to the city gate, were circumcised. 3 days later, while they were still in pain, Jacob's sons Simeon and Levi, 2 of Dinah's brothers, each grabbed a sword and entered the city unannounced, intending to kill all the males. They killed Hamor and his son Shechem with their swords, took back Dinah from Shechem's house, and left. Jacob's other sons came along afterward and plundered the city where their sister had been defiled, seizing all of their flocks, herds, donkeys, and whatever else was in the city or had been left out in the field. They carried off all their wealth, their children, and their wives as captives, plundering everything that remained in the houses. Then Jacob told Simeon and Levi, "You have certainly stirred up trouble for me. You've made me despised by the Canaanites and the Perizzites who live in this territory. Because I have only a few men with me, they're going to gather themselves together and attack me until I am totally destroyed, along with my entire household." "Should he have treated our sister like a whore?" they asked in response.
Give thanks with a grateful heart. Give thanks to the Holy One.
Genesis 35. Later, God told Jacob, "Get up, move to Bethel, and live there. Build an altar to the God who appeared to you when you were fleeing from your brother Esau." Jacob announced to his household and to everyone with him, "Throw away the foreign gods that you've kept among you, purify yourselves, and change your clothes. Then let's get up and go to Bethel, where I'll build an altar to the God who answered me when I was in distress and who was with me on the road, wherever I went." So they handed over to Jacob all their foreign gods on which they had been depending, along with the rings that they were wearing on their ears. Jacob buried them under the oak that grew near Shechem. As they set out on their journey, because the people who lived in the cities around them feared God, they did not pursue Jacob's sons. Eventually, Jacob and everyone with him arrived at Luz, also called Bethel, in the territory of Canaan. He built an altar there to God and named the place El Bethel, because God had revealed himself there when he was fleeing from his brother. Rebekah's nurse Deborah died and was buried there, under the oak tree that was below Bethel. That's why the place was named Allon-Bachuth. God appeared again to Jacob after he had arrived from Paddan Aram and blessed him. Then God told him, "Your name is Jacob. No longer are you to be called Jacob. Instead, your name will be Israel." So God called his name Israel and also told him, "I am God Almighty. You are to be fruitful and multiply. You will become a nation, in fact, an assembly of nations. Kings will come from you, they'll emerge from your own loins. Now as for the land that I gave to Abraham and Isaac, I'm giving it to you and to your descendants who come after you. I'm giving the land to you." After this, God ascended from the place where he had been speaking to him. Jacob erected a pillar of stone at that very place where God had spoken to him. He poured a drink offering over it, anointed it with oil, and named the place where God had spoken to him Bethel. Later, they set out from Bethel. While still a long way from Ephrathah, Rachel started to have trouble giving birth. While she was suffering due to her difficult labor, the midwife told her, "Don't fear. You're going to have another son." Just before she died, Rachel called her son's name Ben-Oni, but his father Jacob named him Benjamin. So Rachel died and was buried on the way to Ephrathah, also known as Bethlehem. Jacob erected a pillar over her grave, and that pillar stands over Rachel's grave to this day. Jacob continued his travels, and eventually pitched his tent facing Migdal Eder. But while Israel lived in that land, Reuben went inside his father's tent and had sexual relations with his father's concubine Bilhah, and Israel heard about it. Now Jacob had 12 sons. Leah's sons were Reuben, Jacob's firstborn, Simeon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, and Zebulun. Rachel's sons were Joseph and Benjamin. Rachel's servant Bilhah's sons were Dan and Naphtali. Leah's servant Zilpah's sons were Gad and Asher. These were Jacob's sons who were born to him while he lived in Paddan Aram. So Jacob reached his father Isaac at Mamre, in Kiriath Arba, also known as Hebron, where Abraham and Isaac had lived. Isaac had lived a total of 180 years when he died and joined his ancestors at a ripe old age. Then his sons Esau and Jacob buried him.
Give thanks with a grateful heart. Give thanks to the Holy One.
Genesis 36. This is a record of Esau's genealogy, that is, of Edom. Esau had married Canaanite women, including Elon the Hittite's daughter Adah, Oholibamah, the daughter of Anah, who was Zibeon the Hivite's daughter, and Ishmael's daughter Basemath, who was Nebaioth's sister. Adah bore Eliphaz to Esau, Basemath bore Reuel, and Oholibamah bore Jeush, Jalem, and Korah. These were Esau's sons, who were born to him in the territory of Canaan. Later, Esau took his wives, his children, everyone in his household, his livestock, all his animals, and all his possessions that he had acquired in the territory of Canaan and moved far away from his brother Jacob, because their holdings were too vast to allow them to stay together, since the land where they had settled was not able to support all of their livestock. So Esau lived in Mount Seir. Esau was also known as Edom. This is a record of the family history of Esau, the ancestor of the Edomites of Mount Seir. The names of Esau's sons were Eliphaz, the son of Esau's wife Adah, and Reuel, the son of Esau's wife Basemath. Eliphaz's sons were Taman, Omar, Zepho, Gatam, and Kenaz. Timnah was a concubine of Esau's son Eliphaz. She bore Amalek to Eliphaz. Reuel's sons were Nahat, Zerah, Shammah, and Mizah. These were the sons of Esau's wife Basemath. These were the sons of Esau's wife Oholibamah, the daughter of Anah, who was the daughter of Zibeon. She bore Jeush, Jalem, and Korah for Esau. These were the tribal leaders of Esau's descendants, that is, the children of Eliphaz, who was Esau's firstborn, tribal leaders Taman, Omar, Zepho, Kenaz, Korah, Gatam, and Amalek. These were the tribal leaders who descended from Eliphaz in the territory of Edom. These were Ada's sons. These were the descendants of Esau's son Reuel, tribal leaders Nahat, Zerah, Shammah, and Mizah. These were the tribal leaders who descended from Reuel in the territory of Edom. These were the sons of Esau's wife Basemath. These were the descendants of Esau's wife Oholibamah, tribal leaders Jeush, Jalem, and Korah. These tribal leaders descended from Esau's wife Oholibamah, Anna's daughter. These were the descendants of Esau, also known as Edom, and their tribal leaders. These were the descendants of Seir the Horite, who lived in the territory, Lotan, Shobal, Zibeon, Anna, Dishon, Ezer, and Dishan. These were the tribal leaders who descended from the Horites, the descendants of Seir in the territory of Edom. Lotan's children were Hori and Hemam. Lotan's sister was Timnah. Shobal's children were Alvan, Manahath, Ebal, Shepho, and Onam. Zibeon's children were Ea and Anna. Anna discovered the hot springs in the wilderness while grazing his father Zibeon's donkeys. Anna's children were Dishon and Anna's daughter Oholibamah. Dishon's children were Hemdan, Eshban, Ithran, and Karen. Ezer's children were Bilhan, Zavan, and Achan. Dishan's children were Uz and Aaron. These were the tribal leaders who descended from the Horites, tribal leaders Lotan, Shobal, Zibeon, Anna, Dishon, Ezer, and Dishan. These were the tribal leaders who descended from the Horites, according to their tribal leaders in the territory of Seir. This is a list of the kings who ruled the territory of Edom before any king reigned over the Israelis. Beer's son Bela ruled over Edom. His city's name was Dinhabah. After Bela died, Zerah's son Jobab from Bozrah ruled in his place. After Jobab died, Husham from the territory of the Temanites ruled in his place. After Husham died, Bedad's son Hadad, who killed Midian in the field of Moab, ruled in his place. His city's name was Avith. After Hadad died, Samlah from Masrekah ruled in his place. After Samlah died, Shaul from Rehoboth by the river ruled in his place. After Shaul died, Ekber's son Baal-Hanan ruled in his place. After Ekber's son Baal-Hanan died, Hadar ruled in his place. His city's name was Pel. And his wife's name was Mehetabel, who was the daughter of Matred, and granddaughter of Mezahab. These were the names of the chiefs who descended from Esau according to their clans, territories, and names, tribal leaders Timnah, Alva, Jethet, Oholibamah, Elah, Pinion, Kenaz, Taman, Mibzar, Magdiel, and Iram. These were the chiefs who descended from Edom, according to their territories in their own land. This was the dynasty of Esau, who was the ancestor of the Edomites.